topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the host and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Hey, welcome. Good to have you with us. I'm Bill Martinez, and our next guest, you can blame it all on him, guys. He's the comedian who famously coined the phrase, happy wife, happy life, huh? Oh, I mean, he could have come up with something for us, but no, but I think it was for him. It certainly answered his need. He's been a hero ever since with his wife, and I guess that's all that counts because it's, after all about him. Jeff Allen is who I'm talking about, and he's the author of a new book, Are We There Yet? My Journey from a Messed Up to Meaningful Life. Jeff joins us now. Jeff, welcome to the show. Good to have you with us.
Hey, good to be with you. And I came up with happy husband. Who cares? Doesn't rhyme.
That's what I'm saying. Where's the counter to that? So where the guys go, okay, at least
nothing rhymes with husband.
No, because you could take that in a t-shirt and she'll throw it right out.
Yeah.
So yeah, happy wife, happy life. It works. And so here it is, and so just to get over it, you got to live with it. And hopefully, it doesn't get you in too much trouble.
Well, it fits our bumper sticker culture, no justice,
exactly.
No peace,
Yeah.
Those kind of things,
all that good stuff. Well,
right.
Jeff, it's good to be talking to you again. I always enjoy our time together. You, in your book, Are We There Yet? Boy, you're pretty raw. I mean, you lay it out. And in fact, I was watching a video, I think you did a while ago, about being an atheist. And how hard that was to be an atheist. Actually, you didn't even realize how hard it was, right?
No, I didn't really. If you had asked me what my worldview was, I would have said, "What's a worldview?" I had no clue. I just, my father told me when I was 14 to stay away from Christians. They were bad people, so I stayed away from them. My uncle was a pastor, my dad's brother, and then his son was a pastor, and so the outside peripheral family, so anyway, I just lived my life, just following whatever my desires, wherever they took me. And, it's interesting. Somebody asked me recently in an interview, why would you share such deeply personal and not flattering things about you? But I said, I wanted the reader to understand when I said I was angry, what that looked like within the confines of my house, because who you are at home is who you are. I mean, you can put on a public persona all you want, but in the end, you between those walls of your house and how you treat your wife and your kids is who you are as a man. So when I shared the story about standing on a stool in a kitchen and screaming at her till she fell to her knees and sobbed, and then put my son to bed that night, and 6-year-old son says, you win, Daddy. I go, what do you mean I win? He goes, you yell, Mommy cries. You win, And I went downstairs and I told Tammy, I'm going to get some help. I didn't want to be this man.
Right.
And that was kind of the journey about, the first half of the book is that journey, 7 or 8 years of trying to figure out, when I went into a 12-step program, they said, pray, of course I said, to what?
Yeah.
And they said, well, make it up. And I thought, well, that's kind of,
that's
I'm making up a deity that makes me delusional. I mean, I understand, God exists or he doesn't. I'll give you that. Okay.
Right. Exactly.
So I might have moved into agnosticism relatively early in my walk, but I exhausted, self-help, New Age, Buddhism, and I think when I met the man that put the Bible in my home, I was reading Ayn Rand at the time and trying to figure out how to put a Band-Aid on my marriage with more money, and anyway, that's the second half of the book, is that what that looks like.
Yeah, but here it is. And as things would work out, it's interesting how God uses people and brings them into your life.
Yeah.
And sometimes the people that he uses are the most irritating, right? They can be.
Well, my favorite answer to a prayer, Wonderful Life, when George Bailey is at the end of his rope.
Exactly.
And he says to God, I don't do this well. I really don't talk to you, whatever. And he says, I need something. I need help. And then the next scene, he gets punched in the face, and through that, his life is saved,
Yeah.
So sometimes an answer to a prayer for your own good is a punch in the face,
Mm-hmm. Well, I like the story that you share about this guy you meet up with that you don't particularly care for, but he's a golfer and he happens to belong to a really nice country club. And I mean, you didn't know that he's a Christian. You just right?
I heard he could get me on Augusta National, and that's all I needed to hear. I told my agent I want to work with this guy, and he said, "Why? He's not that funny." I said, "I don't care at all." So anyway, again, I'm reading Ayn Rand, and we're on a golf course.
Yeah.
And he's quoting the Bible, and I'm trying to figure out how do you accumulate wealth, because I was never taught how to be wealthy.
Right.
And the first thing he says to me is, you don't want a lot of money. I go, I don't. He goes, you can't handle what little you have, apparently. A lot would be just a burden for you. Right. And I couldn't, I go, of course, who doesn't want money? And as I got older, I realized he was right. I mean, had I come into a pile of cash at that point in my life, I'd either be dead from cocaine or I certainly would have been bankrupt, but
here's this smart aleck who's got a membership at Augusta National, and he's throwing shade your way, right?
Well, he wasn't a member, but he had friends. He had a friend that was, at the time, I didn't know this, but he was the CEO of Piggly Wiggly. And he was a member there, which is interesting because he asked me to go out there, and I was living in Phoenix at the time, and he calls me like on a Monday. He goes, Wednesday, we're going to play Augusta. And I looked into it, the airfare, everything, it cost me $2,000 to $3,000 to do it. And I just said, I don't have the money. I can't do it.
Right.
But I'm moving to Nashville. So when I get there, it'll be, I can just drive to Augusta. And,
exactly.
So a year and a half later, I call him up and I go, hey man, about Augusta. He goes, oh, the guy died. I go, what do you mean he died? He goes, he was 83. I go, you didn't tell me that. You know?
That's not fair.
They might have hocked one of my kids, just to get there. And if I had a jury of my peers, golfers, they would have understood
exactly
why I did that.
Yeah, nobody would have convicted you, no doubt. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, but what an experience. I mean, I had a chance to play Augusta, and just to walk the grounds that all these great golfers had walked, and we were with a media group that was the last group that played in the season. And as you may know, and it's the last week of May. And right after that group's over, they roll up all of the grass and everything, just like rolling up carpet, and they reseed the place. And
really,
it was just so spectacular. And what a joy.
Yeah. I got an acquaintance here, and a guy I know pretty well, but anyway, since he was a kid, he carried the placards for the tournament with the scores on them.
Oh, yeah. Uh-huh.
And now he's almost 55 years old. He still does it because they let him play on Monday after the tournament.
Exactly. Yeah.
So he says, I'm not giving that job up, man.
No. Yeah. Without a doubt.
It for 40 years.
So anyway, but you end up at Augusta, and this guy who is a Christian you didn't know, and you're talking Ayn Rand, he's talking the Bible, and but something breaks through there, right?
Yeah, we weren't at Augusta. We were doing a comedy club in Tampa, and first week together, but we're out golfing during the day. And I'm asking him, how do you accumulate wealth? And he said, first of all, I want to tell you straight up, you can't enjoy the creation till you have a relationship with the one who created it. And I said, well, that sounds kind of new agey. Where'd you read that? He goes, well, the relationship part is biblical. It's in the Bible with Jesus. And I went, oh, okay. So a couple holes went by. He said something else. I go, that's really great. Where do you read it? And he says, it's in the Bible. And I said, stop it with the Bible. He goes, what do you mean? He goes, I said, well, who reads the Bible anymore? God's word, come on, that's a little archaic.
Right.
And he says, well, let's back up. What's in the Bible you don't think is true? And I go, I don't know. I never read the Bible. He goes, well, you're not really an atheist. You're a moron, and then he went on to explain. He goes, the Bible is the most influential book in the history of mankind, in the history of the world. You can't even crack it open. How lazy and moronic is that?
Exactly.
Yeah, I wanted to hit him, but then I think he would have not invited me to Augusta. So
Yeah, exactly.
if it's possible,
close that door.
yeah, if it's possible for an atheist to have an ethical quandary, I was in one, So, but anyway, we struck a friendship up that week, and before we left, he said, I like you, and to this day, thinking back on the man I was, I couldn't understand why, I had nothing to offer him as anything outside of the fact that I was a good comic and he was trying to learn the trade. And I'm thinking maybe that was it. He wanted to pick my brain for some comedy tips or something. I don't know, but
yeah, maybe you could throw a couple of your B material lines that didn't work before. You could throw them his way, and maybe
or at least teach him about timing and and editing. That to me is comedy in the essence. Shakespeare said brevity is the soul of wit. And I'm amazed at how many guys tell me jokes after shows and the wife stand behind them just rolling their eyes as they go on and on and on. And it's one I've heard, but I'm a polite guy. So I just sit. And then sometimes I laugh because I'm not paying attention. And it's like at the setup, not the punchline. So it's embarrassing. No, that's not the joke. Oh, I'm sorry. Are you still talking? I'm kind of drained out here. Yeah. But anyway, we parted friends that week, and he signed me up for some tapes coming out of Texas, Denton Bible. Pastor Tom Nelson, who has done a brilliant series on Song of Solomon.
Yes.
He toured that for years on love, sex, and marriage. And then anyway, he sent me a Bible. I just threw that in a junk drawer when it arrived at my house. And the tapes came every 2 weeks. I had two new tapes. And never opened them up. And for about a year or so, we were friends, played golf together, we hooked up when we could to work together.
Right. And
he never asked me about the tapes or the Bible. We had deep conversations. Again, I'm reading to, trying to figure this whole thing out.
Right.
What's the point to all? I'm losing everything.
But you're not reading the Bible, though. You're reading everything else, right?
Everything else. I tell this to churches all the time when I work there. You walk into any Barnes and Noble in America and the shelves are full of books of man's attempt to find meaning apart from God.
Yeah.
Thousands and thousands of books. We're a chatty little species he created.
Right.
And then the Bible sits with dust on it because nobody wants to crack it open, and it was about a year or so in. Tammy and I had filled out divorce papers and we were about 10 minutes from the courthouse.
Wow.
And she had me pull over. So we're having a conversation about whether or not we're going to end our marriage. 10 minutes from the courthourse. And
how long have you guys been married to this point?
About 7 years.
7 years. Wow.
And I said to her, you're out. She goes, what do you mean? I go, Tammy, I love you. I really do. But I'm damaged goods like my brother and my father. I can't stop raging. I can't stop smashing things, And every time I'd smash something, she'd just cower in the corner. Because of her upbringing. Every time somebody got angry in her home growing up, she got hit. So the minute I raise my voice, it just triggers all of that. And she'd either start yelling at me to stop yelling, which was counterproductive.
Right.
I used to say I hated conflict. Conflict in my home growing up, if I stood up for myself, my father pitched me against the wall to end the conflict. Right. So I just learned to fight or flight. I mean, when conflict comes, so we have this interesting marriage in that she needs to stop the conflict. And I don't want to do conflict, but I can't get away from her to just settle down long enough to, so it was this dance we did. And I just told her you're out. And she goes, well, this is wrong. And I said, if we go home, divorce is off the table. This is your one and only shot to get me out.
Right.
And you deserve better than me. I told her that. You deserve better than me. But nobody will love those kids as much as I do. You're not going to find another man to love our two boys as much as I do. Yeah. But I can't, I wouldn't fault you. So anyway, she said, let's go home. And about 5 or 6 months later, the summer came and she took the kids to Ohio. And I didn't think she was coming back. I really didn't. And she told me years later that when she got off the plane, her parents grabbed her and said, great, you're home now. You don't have to go back to him. Yeah. And anyway, I took that opportunity to listen to a tape. And it was Ecclesiastes. And I honestly don't believe out of all those tapes, any other book of the Bible would have spoke to me at that point in my life like Ecclesiastes.
Yeah, exactly.
Meaningless. All in life is meaningless.
Vanity.
And
right.
Yeah, vanity. Yeah. but I that was my conclusions.
Mhm.
After seeking for 7+ years of trying to find an answer or a point to this existence, I was a full-blown nihilist at this point.
Oh, I bet. Yeah.
And
Yeah. You're well
to hear
practiced.
that
Yeah.
was so
Exactly.
true,
Yeah.
so true. And I thought, well, if that truth is in this book, there has to be other truth in it. And it's interesting that all the tapes I listened to were either Job or Ecclesiastes.
Wow.
And I just found Job. I actually laughed the first time I read Job, because I thought, man, this poor sap,
Yeah.
he's got the whole world by the hand, and then all of a sudden fire bombs come out of the sky and hit his cattle. It wasn't like the crew came in and said, we got a hoof and mouth disease. No, there's fireballs coming from the sky, man. We're quitting. We're not gonna. Something with you. Somebody doesn't like you.
That's right. Yeah, exactly.
And then when the wife said, "Curse God and die,"
right?
You're sitting there with all those sores, and you're in a burlap sack, and you've lost everything, and you're still worshiping God. And then he says, "Quiet, woman."
Right.
Do I just take his blessings and not? This is all from God for whatever reason. And anyway, ended up getting
away. And then he
had bad advice.
He sends 3 knucklehead friends to give him advice.
That was it. So your friends are telling you, oh, of course you did something. God hates you. Obviously.
Right.
And that was nothing but the truth. That nothing further from the truth. So when I hit,
so you're listening to these tapes, and all of a sudden the Bible starts becoming real for you.
Yes, and I was laying my life over the words. One of the verses I remember writing of the word "wow" next to was, what joy or what benefit do you get from those things that you are now ashamed of? And I thought of all the years I drank and drugged that I thought I was having a great time, and now, I'm humiliated by it. I mean, it was like, holy cow, I wasted 15 years of my life.
Yeah, exactly.
And all the money I spent on the drugs and the alcohol and all of that, and then you go, wow, that's so true.
Going back to that moment where you guys are 10 minutes from the courthouse to end it all. What impresses me, Jeff, is that I think maybe your wife realized, and maybe you did in the back of your mind, that somehow the marriage, as messed up as it was going to be the source of healing for both of you. It's like something that both of you had to go through in order to realize your destiny, so to speak, if I can put it in those terms.
I agree with you. I also believe, and again, I say this all the time, that if God sat me down at the age of 31, the day after I went into recovery, he said, look, this is what I'm going to put you and your wife through for the next 7 or 8 years.
Yeah.
But at the end of this journey of all that pain and suffering, you're going to know my son, Jesus, and you're going to know a peace and a calm that will pass all your all of that. I would have never signed up, which is why he doesn't tell us his plans. But it's almost as if he said, look, I'm going to give you enough rope to let you seek your answer.
Mm-hmm.
And if you think you can find it in earth here,
you're right.
Eventually it'll leave you empty. And it did, and it quenched, the self-help wasn't a total waste. I recommend books. I hope people read my book.
Yeah.
But I hope that's only the beginning. I hope it stirs you to go inside and take a good look at yourselves and realize that there's a better life than the one you're living. And I'm still, my gosh, I'm still a work in progress. I mean, and that was the title. Are we there yet?
Yeah.
Because I was constantly asking, am I done?
Yeah.
Am I done? I'm tired of this. I'm tired. And then eventually I get triggered or something, and I'd smash something, and I'd go, and Tammy would look at me and go, you haven't changed in 20 years. That was like the worst thing she could say to me. You haven't changed. I go, oh God, I hate myself,
Right.
And then the cycle starts and you come back and you go, but what used to be 2 or 3 times a week is now maybe 2 or 3 times in a year.
Right.
I get really hungry or tired from the travel or something. And then, I'll watch something on TV and I'll throw a Nerf ball. I throw Nerf balls at the news,
Oh, yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Tammy hates me commenting.
Yeah. Do you have a bucket of Nerf balls these days?
Yeah.
I have a bucket.
Yeah, everything I say, she goes, I've heard it. Just shut up, So anyway, I just throw Nerf balls, and then she goes, okay, she knows what I would have said. So,
Right.
yeah.
Exactly. The wise woman that she is.
Yes,
So,
she is.
so for 6 months, she's back with her family, for some peace, I guess. And you, in your own way, you figure, okay, you have time, and you're starting to move in a different direction.
Yes.
Now, during this 6 months, are you talking to her and sharing with
Well,
her
3 months,
your
because she
or 3 months? Okay.
she went for the summer with the kids. Oh yeah, I actually she was involved. The first chapter begins with I proposed to her at baggage claim in Cleveland Airport, because I wanted the reader to fall in love with my romantic side.
Okay.
So
At the baggage claim, that'll do
baggage
it.
claim. Can you get
Exactly.
anyway? The illustration that a pastor would use is, she had no idea the baggage she picked up that day. Hey, here I am.
Yeah.
But anyway, the chapter ends 7 years later. I find out she's in the middle of a relationship with another guy in California.
Oh, wow.
And I call her on the phone and I tell her to get home to Arizona, where we were living.
Mm.
And her friend called me 2 hours later and said she won't be home tonight. She's devastated. She can't fly. She'll be home in the morning. And I believe this in my heart, Bill. Had she come home that night, we wouldn't be married today.
Yeah.
Was
she aware that you had found out?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I called her on it. I had a feeling, it's interesting. I write this in the book, but it's like, all of a sudden, phone calls are being answered in the kitchen. They're being moved to the bedroom.
Yeah.
A lot of times you pick up the phone, somebody's hanging up, I mean, there were things.
Yeah.
And we had long stopped, being intimate, So anyway, I had a feeling, and then she went to California again, and I called a friend of hers to talk to her. This is before cell phones.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, she's not here. She's out shopping. And I think, who goes visits a friend and then decides they want to go shopping on their own?
Yeah, without their friend.
So
yeah, exactly.
Anyway, I called my American Express and I said, is my card being used right now? And they said, yeah, it's at a hotel in whatever, Southern Cal.
Right.
And anyway, I said, could you give me the phone number of the hotel? And anyway, I called the hotel, got a room. She picked up the phone and I said, gotcha.
Ooh.
And it was this pie. I said, get home. I was angry, which wasn't unusual for me anyway. I could watch a Bears game and smash things.
I hear you, but this is tough. This is a tough violation. I mean, this is a breach of trust and all that goes on. And like you said, you had an inkling that something was happening, but right. God had determined that that was the day you needed to know the truth.
Well, that was it. And also, had she come home that night, I would have cut her verbally and said things I probably couldn't have taken back. James compares the human tongue to like a rudder on a ship.
Exactly.
He says the rudder is a small part of a large vessel. You can't steer the vessel without that small. And the tongue is the same thing. It's a small part of our bodies.
Exactly.
But you steer this whole thing with your tongue. You can bless or curse. So anyway, I had a night alone with the God I didn't believe in. And it was a constant reminder of the kind of man I was. I mean, every time I'd get righteously angry, some little voice would remind me of the time I stood on a stool in New Jersey and I screamed at her. There was a bunch of those incidents.
Yeah. Right.
And
right.
I left at the end of the night. Obviously, I didn't sleep.
So as often as you wanted to pick up a stone, you were reminded that, of the offenses that you had, and you had to put the stone down, right?
100%, Bill.
Yeah, exactly.
And I went from how could she to I understand. How could she not? I mean, honestly, if I was married to me, it wouldn't have lasted 7 years.
Right, right. Exactly.
So I picked her up at the airport the next day and I gave her a kiss, on the cheek and gave her a hug. And she said, that's it. I go, that's all I got left. I'm exhausted and we're a mess. We're an absolute mess, you and I. We got kids that need adults, So if what you want's in California, I won't stand in your way. But if you want this to work, you have to take 50% of the blame for this mess.
Right.
You can't make it 51-49.
Right.
I can't be more at fault than you, and you can't be at more fault than me. Let's just say we both screwed up.
Wow.
And
Jeff, that's wisdom, Jeff. I mean, for you to understand that like that, I mean, how many guys in that situation would have said that?
Well, I don't know, but that's God. That's the verse where Jesus says, "Be careful of the the method you use to judge another.
Exactly.
You know, be careful how you judge another, because I'll use the same standard on you. You know, and I didn't know the verse, but in hindsight, I look back and I go, yeah, that's, and again, I wanted to title the book An Examined Life, based on Socrates, I think it was, and said, an unexamined life is not worth living.
Right. Exactly.
And so I wanted to call it that, but I thought, are we there yet? Kind of really said it in this sense that you're a child getting into recovery, and you're like on this journey.
Right.
And you're not driving the ship, God's
Right.
driving the ship, and you just keep going. Am I there? Am I there? Am I there? Come on.
Yeah.
Why
but he's moving you from glory to glory. And
right.
In this
and you
process,
don't know it.
right?
I mean,
exactly.
Yeah, it doesn't look pretty. Doesn't feel pretty.
So here,
anyway.
here you're dealing, with this issue, and you both, you come to the conclusion, okay, 50-50. And, I mean, that is really, really tough. I remember I had one counselor and, we were talking about a similar issue, and, cause he said, well, you'll know if you've forgiven the other person, if you can feel the same way about them that you did before you knew that there was an offense. I said, wow, that's a tough, that's a tough fence to climb.
It is, especially if you're in a marriage where you really did nothing to warrant. I had certainly a history.
Right.
Well,
I think like you said, when you examine your life and you're being objective about it, nobody's innocent here. It takes two. We're co-creators in this family dynamic. And so nobody can, wash their hands clean and say, well, she was a total idiot or he was a total idiot and went off the reservation. I mean, there's causal aspects to it. And fortunately, both of you, because of the kids you love so much, it gave you some sobriety and some anchoring.
Yeah. And I think a lot of it, I traveled a lot, so we had time apart. So it wasn't this constant thing that was hanging over us 24/7. For years, we'd get apart and get a chance to think, and unfortunately, it's funny. Tammy made me, when we were going through the last draft of the book, I told her, you need to read this and be okay, because this is my version of what we went through. So we spent 3 days and about 40 hours going through every line in the book.
How many times did she throw the book at you?
Well, it was interesting. She read the first 2 chapters and put it down. She says, I can't read anymore. We were horrible people. Wow. And I said, well, you have to finish the story, Tam.
Right.
You know that. I said, who we were is not who we are. I mean,
exactly.
It was a hard read, but she made me take the word affair out. I was calling it an affair. Mm-hmm. And I said, why? It's an affair. She said, no, it's not. She said, an affair would give the reader some kind of belief that there was something romantic.
Right.
And there was nothing romantic. I wanted somebody to be nice to me, and he was.
Yeah. And
that's what I tell church men all the time in the churches. I go, look, if you won't be nice to her and you won't tell her she's pretty, somebody will.
That's right. Exactly.
And at some point, the strongest character will be broken, because the devil will be pounding and pounding and pounding. And so it doesn't take much. She's a low maintenance woman. She really is. I mean, I grab her hand every now and then. Sometimes, I'll be hugging on her and she'll go, all right, get away. I get it. So I just want you to know I'm here, baby. That's all.
Exactly. Yeah. It's like that scene with Billy Crystal, how long do you hold on to them after you've been intimate, right?
Yeah.
I love that. It's like, okay, it's like there's a rule or something.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. Right.
Hard and fast.
Yeah, exactly. But it was like, okay, that's enough of you. Move on.
Right.
Yeah. So you get through it, and she reads the book, gets to the other side, and takes a breath and says, wow. Yeah.
Yeah. And, again, we put it out there, and it'll be what it'll be. We're out of control of anything that people read it or they don't. I'm just glad I got it out there. I wanted it for my kids. I wanted it for my grandkids. And I wanted it for the 30 to 40-year-olds in America now that are sitting at home, staring at the ceiling going, is this it?
Well, Jeff, look at the divorce rate in America today. I mean, the chances of you getting divorced, every marriage out there, it's better than 50-50.
Right.
I mean, this is why the attorneys, they love the institution of marriage. I mean, they're making a ton of flipping money off of this stuff because for some, because we stubbornly think we know better. And yet God tells us in his word, he lays it out for us quite clearly, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does. And it's we were old enough. I was 30. So I had enough relationships to know that if this one went away, I'd find another one just like it, And
I know
she said
that's
the
the
same
thing,
thing to me. She said, look, my history with men is not good,
Right.
and so you want to hang in there, and when we took divorce off the table, that was probably the best thing we ever did. Because always in the back of my mind, I thought, well, she'll leave me and then I can move on,
Right.
and early on, before I quit drinking, that first year, I was ready to dump it the first year. I go, I can't do this,
Yeah.
I can't keep, can't party the way I wanted to.
Right.
And there's this person asking me, why are you getting home at 3 or 4 in the morning, and she'd kick me out of bed at 6:30 in the morning, and I'd be laying there all hung over and still drunk. And she'd go, those boys need a father, get up, here's Satan, get away from me. Exactly. Why did I marry you? Are you kidding me? This isn't good.
Yeah. So the boys have read the book.
No, I hope they do. And my grandchildren,
they haven't yet. And
no, they've heard.
I'm sure that you and Tammy along the way have told them some stories to because obviously they lived with you. They understood that at one time you were a hot mess, and now. Well,
I told the story in the book of what got me into recovery. I spanked my 6-month-old in the crib.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And I was drunk and coked up, and he's crying, and I didn't want him to cry, and I spanked him. And Tammy woke up and took him away. She goes, who does this?
Yeah.
And then she sat on the end of the bed and fed him. And the shame and the humiliation that washed over me. I go, I need help. Okay, take me to AA tomorrow. Take me. Right. I don't know if I'll have the courage to go on my own. So put me in the car and drop me off and then come pick me up. And, I told that story when my son was 12, I think the first time he heard it.
Right.
He came over to me and goes, Daddy, was I that boy? I go, you were. And I said, I was a different man then. And he put his arms around me and he gave me a hug and he said, I forgive you, Dad.
Oh,
and
wow.
I sat there and sobbed in his arms.
Oh,
I didn't realize how important it was to have my son say, I forgive you, if I said that to my father, I forgive you, he would have looked at me and said, for what?
Yeah.
Obviously I was perfect. I don't understand what you're forgiving me for.
Exactly. Well, we're visiting with Jeff Allen, talking about his new book, Are We There Yet? My Journey from a Messed Up to Meaningful Life. It is true. It's raw. It lays it out there. And, for all of us humanoids going through the journey of life, realizing that none of us are perfect. We're all fallen, that we need a holy God and his solution to our sin problem. And, Jeff, God in his long forbearance puts up with people like you and me and allows us to go through this journey, right?
Absolutely. And it's interesting to me. Again, coming at 40 years old, I was an adult. Mm-hmm. I wasn't a child. I didn't get emotionally moved at 9 years old and say, Jesus, I'm yours.
Right.
For me, it was an 8-year, whatever. I'm looking. So my prayer to him on that day was, if you are who you claim to be, I'm yours.
Yeah.
And again, it was like, we'll see. And I'm not making this up, Bill. Mm-hmm. The next day, I had the kids with me. I was in Texas, and my father gave me Playboy when I was 11 or 12 years old. He handed me a magazine, said, I want you to learn about women. Yeah. So that was my introduction to Playboy.
We're going to let Hugh Hefner be your mentor.
Right. Okay, exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
Right.
So anyway, I bought Playboy. I read Playboy my entire life. Wow. Never had a problem with it. Mm-hmm. Tammy actually got me a subscription to Playboy when we first got married for Christmas.
Wow.
I mean, that's where we were at. I mean,
Yeah.
it says here, I'd rather have you looking and then chasing, the real thing.
Right.
So anyway, the day after I say to Jesus, I'm yours. Now I got the kids, we're getting gas at a gas station. I walk in and I see the new Playboy in the rack. Remember when they used to sell them over the counter? So anyway, I go, oh, I'm going to give the new Playboy. And a voice inside of me goes, it's wrong.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, I ended up in the back of the store having a conversation with myself. What do you mean it's wrong? What do you mean? Anyway,
I can buy what I want. I'm a grown up.
Right. Yeah. And then I read the verse like 2 days later. I'm in the Bible reading, and it says, don't worry about this life. I will send a counselor in the form of the Holy Spirit to help you. Anyway, I go, is that the counselor? Is that it? And then you realize I have a new conscience warring with the old conscience. It's like, and that's been 27 years. It's a constant, struggle. I said it would be so easy for me if the Holy Spirit spoke to me in a Spanish accent. Then I would know what part of my soul that's coming from.
I've never heard that. A Spanish accent. That's awesome.
Hola, Jeff. I go, it's you, Jeff. Lord. Okay.
Hey.
I'm here.
Yeah, it's okay. Put that down. We'll have a churro together. It's okay.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Don't do that. Oh, it's you. Okay. Yeah. You're there.
That's hysterical. So the long and short of it is you didn't buy the Playboy.
I did not. I mean, and it's, again, it's still, a back and forth struggle for years. I finally told Tammy, I said, look, I don't know if I'll ever be 100% batting 1,000, but believe me, I mean, it's so funny to me. If I go online and look at something I'm not supposed to, it's like 2 minutes and I go, what are you doing?
Yeah,
you're
exactly.
67 years old, for God's sakes.
Well, and what is it, Jeff? I'm telling you, here at our age, I mean, before it was like Russian brides, right? And they're sitting there bombarding my cell phone all the time. I go, what? I didn't ask for you. And so then you cancel them and block them and do whatever. And now I think I'm in the Asian continent now. So,
moving you around the globe.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's like, and every once in a while I'll just have fun with them because, these gals send stuff. I go, I could be your grandfather,
Right. Well, Tammy and I had a discussion not that long ago. She said to me, by the way, if you ever leave me for a younger woman and you go beyond one generation, you're a creep. And I go, oh. So what you're saying is I'd have to tell my friends I left my wife for a 50-year-old. Yeah. And they go, yeah, why would you do that?
Exactly.
Yeah. So I said, well, and then it just ruins the whole thing. If I can't leave you for a 20-year-old, what's the point?
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's like my buddy used to say, he traded, his 40-year-old wife in for 2 20s. I said, what are you thinking?
Yeah, I love the guys that have been married 5 times. They lose everything. And I said, why don't you just walk into a bar, find a woman you don't get along with, and buy her a house?
Yeah, and you don't have to
save all that misery in between.
Yeah, exactly. You don't have to deal with the attorneys on top of that, right?
Yeah.
Oh gosh, Jeff, your book, Are We There Yet? My Journey from a Messed Up to a Meaningful Life. I know you laid it out as kind of a bit cathartic for yourself, and you and Tammy, you read it, but it's also, a blessing and a reminder to the rest of us human souls that, hey, look we're humanoids and God knows it. And even in spite of that, he still loves us.
Yeah, we're doing a thing when I'm taking the tour out. Are We There Yet tour? And it was interesting when we were pitching it to the churches. The pastors had said, if all Jeff is going to do is comedy, we don't want it. And I said, oh no, gosh, the second half of the book is a call to action. It's
right.
I asked 5 questions. I can only remember 4 all the time. It's what defines you? What voices do you listen to? What are your expectations are huge, and then where does your hope lie? But also, I don't know if you're familiar with the phrase tikkun olam from the Jewish faith.
Right. Yeah.
Where God knows it's a broken world and he's charged the Jewish people with repairing the world.
Yes.
And your tikkun olam is, what are you doing to repair the world? And that's kind of the end. I think we took it out of the book. I don't know. I said to my wife, I don't know why I wasn't paying enough attention. But when the editors took it out, I didn't notice it. So it's not in the book. But the tikkun olam is an important part of the tour.
Oh, that's precious. I
Yeah.
love that idea because
Yeah.
that reminds us that we're here to serve, Jeff.
Right. And God knows it's broken. I mean,
Yeah.
you're not telling him anything new. I mean, it's not like you're going, why'd you allow this? Why'd you allow? Well, anyway, it's your job to figure out what your talents are, your time and your treasure, whatever that is.
Mm-hmm.
And what are you doing to help heal the world? If all you're going to do is complain about it, what good are you? You know?
Yeah.
And believe me, there's enough complaining going on, you know.
Well, your message is a message that, the church can, needs to hear, Jeff, because you're so real and raw with it that, when you look out in the pews on Sunday, they tell me, according to Barna Research, a third have been involved with abortion, and they carry the guilt in their heart,
Right.
Women, and now an increasing number of men, as you and I have been talking about earlier, have come to the realization, can't blame it on that woman, it's like, hey, where were you? And, so we've all participated in the murder of our children, and we carry this grief in our hearts. And, I tell people all the time when I'm talking to women, particularly, although there was a director of a movie, I'm sitting aside, we're doing an interview, and I'm talking and relate to them that, I'll talk to women and they'll recount and say, yeah, my child would have been 7 today, or my child would have been 11.
Right.
I mean, this is what they hold deep in their heart. And you can just, you just want to hug them, because they're hurting so deep. And so I'm having this conversation with this director, and he had done an abortion movie. And so as I'm saying, and I'm kind of looking at my notes, I'm not really paying attention. I look up, tears are rolling down his face. And he says, Bill, my son would have been 18. And wow,
Right.
And so that's what's happening, is that even men are waking up to their, the realization of their participation. You mentioned pornography. Pornography is widespread, even in the churches as well. We're fallen. I mean, that's why we go to churches, to be reminded that we need hope, and the hope is in Christ. And hopefully he's there, because as he promised, where 2 or more are gathered in his name, he's there in their midst. Right.
Yeah. And I have a dear friend, who has had she has an abortion ministry, and she just did her first men's retreat.
Oh, wow.
Men of, and she said it was so powerful. These guys were in their 50s and 60s. Like you said, son would be 25, 20,
exactly.
They carried this guilt for 30, 40 years.
Yeah.
And, so anyway, I think it's going to be a growing ministry around the country, where they're realizing if you can heal the men from that particular guilt, and that the devil uses, believe me, the devil's there to remind you of how fallen you are. It's just a constant, barrage. You'll never be good enough. Well, you're right. I never will be.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, thanks for reminding me.
Thanks. I'm okay with that.
Yeah, exactly.
It took me a while, but I'm there. I'm okay.
Well, it's interesting, Jeff, when the Holy Spirit had led me to the realization, because we always talked about women and the pain that they had suffered as a result of, the passing of Roe v. Wade, and millions of babies being murdered in that. And God had said, well, what about the men? And what it was I felt like he was saying, the cry of Rachel that we read of in the Old Testament, and see it fulfilled in the New Testament, when Herod sent out his officials to go and kill all the young boys, right? And so what it was that I felt like God was saying, there's going to be that male version of the cry of Rachel across the land, of men realizing that their sons, their daughters are no more.
Right.
And it stopped me. It really did. It really crushed me. Jeff, we've got about 5 minutes remaining here, and I cannot thank you enough for, being so vulnerable. And, and I feel like I know Tammy so well. I when I run into you two, just tell her, just say, look at this crazy Mexican comes and hugs you. It's because we kind of bonded a little bit here. So it's,
I'll tell her that.
Yeah. But anyway, you mentioned, the 3 ways in your book to change your life for the better. in these last 5 minutes, maybe we can, talk about the key to setting these achievable goals.
Um, yeah, I really, really believe that if you, the most important thing is to at least acknowledge that there's a better way. And then again, it's an internal, again, alcoholism is really a self-diagnosed disease until you admit it. Anybody in your life could tell you what, it wasn't a shock that when I told all my friends, I said, I'm getting help for my alcohol problem. Not one of them said, really, you? Oh,
yeah.
Like
It's about time.
And my good friends said, great, glad to hear it. And the acquaintances I had set up a betting line on how long I would make.
They set up an over and under on you, huh?
Yeah, and it's interesting. Here's a great story. Again, I don't know if I shared this in the book. We took so much out, but anyway, I come back home to my old neighborhood after 5 years of being sober. We're living in Boston. I'm in New York, and I go home. And I'm visiting my sister. So I tell my wife, it's Tuesday night, I'm going to go to the bowling alley. And she says, why? I said, my friends are there. She goes, did you call? I go, I don't need to. They've been every Tuesday since we were 18 years old. They go bowling. I mean, I know I walk in, sure enough, every one of them are there. Wow. And it was like I hadn't even left. Hey, man, you want a beer? It was like, not where you been, haven't seen you in 5 years, and I spent maybe a half an hour. And it was so uncomfortable, I had to leave. And I was talking to my sponsor the next day, and he said, you have to understand, for 5 years, you've been allowed to grow. You've grown. It's like in the movies where somebody snaps their fingers and everybody freezes, but one guy's allowed to move through this frozen crowd. They've been frozen in their addictions for all those years. And here you've grown for 5 years. And that's why I was so uncomfortable. It was like, holy cow, I don't want to go back to this. So that's important, is just to be able to self-diagnose enough to go, look, I got a responsibility here to my wife, my kids, to even if you're single, I got a responsibility to my state, my neighborhood. What did somebody say? You want a good country, start with a good house.
Exactly.
Because homes build blocks, blocks build neighborhoods, neighborhoods, cities, states. So that's important. Just an examined life is an extremely important thing.
Well, and you bring up a good point, because this is where we are in America today, in the chaotic space that we find ourselves in. But that's our lives. I mean, it's like go to the book of Genesis. I often look at that. Between the first and second verse is the chaos, the void, the darkness that was about, and that was the world in sin and chaos. And but the good news is that you read shortly thereafter is the Spirit of God was hovering over it, like a brooding mother hovering over its child to bring it to reality, to bring it to its purpose. Right.
And if again, what I learned in Ecclesiastes, life without God will have no meaning. Without meaning, there's no purpose. Without purpose, suicide.
Yes.
And that's what I see today, is just a bunch of young men who have no purpose. But you got to find your meaning in something outside of you. And it's not going to be the next car, the next house, the next relationship. Sartre, I think it was Sartre, I'm not sure. Again, I'm borderline illiterate. But I think Sartre said that in order for something finite to have meaning, it has to be attached to and fixed to something infinite and unchanging. Yeah. Now, he wouldn't use the God word, but that's God. God is there. He had transcendent. He hasn't moved. He's not going to change. And once you attach yourself to that, then it becomes the question through prayer and meditation. What do you want me to do today? What do you got? I don't know what to do. I'm confused. I'm lost. I love the way Robert Duvall and the Apostle talk to God. It's me, Sonny. God, it's me, Sonny. I messed up again. So. That's
I love those prayers. And I also like what you said. We've got about a minute left here. I like what you said, that go out and find something greater than yourself. Right.
Yeah.
I thought that was a wise admonition.
Well, I had a guy, a sponsor, and we can end on this, but he gave me trash bags one day. And I said, what is this? He goes, when you want to drink and you don't want to go home because you're going to fight with your wife, he said, go pick up trash in a mini mart or something. And he said, and here's the hard part. Don't let anybody see you doing it because your pride will kick in and you'll think you're something special.
Oh.
Just go pick up trash. And I said, why would I do that? Anyway, he said, one day I'm driving home and I didn't want to go home because I'm going to have a fight. I see these stupid trash bags on my passenger seat, grab them. I start picking up trash at a 7-Eleven, and lo and behold, man, I got out of my head. So serve another. We're wired to serve.
Exactly.
We are wired to serve and worship and serve. And
Amen.
if you're not going to serve the master, you'll serve, all these demons that inhabit all of us.
And you'll truly realize a happy life. Ultimately,
that's right.
Doing that, right?
Right.
Exactly.
You'll know. You'll certainly find a peace and an understanding that you never knew existed.
Without a doubt. Jeff Allen, author and comedian of the book, Are We There Yet? Jeff, how can people be in touch? Your book, of course, available at all the usual places, right?
Right. Yeah. I always try to push the Christian bookstores. They all have it. If you live near one, it'd be great. Walk in and support them. But Amazon obviously will get it to you tomorrow. And anywhere else. I know Walmart placed a big order. Sam's Club. So
great.
It's out there, and I hope you enjoy it.
And how about touring information? Where can they see you?
JeffAllenComedy.com. I'm going to be in Washington State at Yakima at the State Fair, Tacoma, coming up the 23rd. I think I'm in Tacoma. 24th, I'm in Yakima. And but anyway, JeffAllenComedy.com, and sign up for Facebook. We post all that stuff weekly where we're traveling to.
Well,
and
Jeff
Amazon
Allen,
Prime. I have 2 specials on Amazon Prime.
Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, Jeff Allen, Godspeed, my friend, for you and Tammy. All the best for you. Continued success, and we got to get your book out there, and people will be blessed when they hear your story. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you, Bill.
You. All right, take care.
All right.
So for more information and to be a part of this mighty movement to return to God and to save our country, go to BillMartinezShow.com. May God bless you and keep you, and make his face shine upon you. May he be gracious unto you and give you peace. Go and be a blessing. Thanks for being with us. Take care.